What's up, y'all? Down South 77 here again, and this is 3-Star Draw. This is an adult collector channel where we talk about G.I. Joe and G.I. Joe related things, primarily G.I. Joe Classified. I always say at the beginning of my videos that occasionally we're going to wander off and talk about something that is not G.I. Joe related or classified related, and I have not done that until now. So I would like to welcome you to the first unboxing and review that is not G.I. Joe related on the channel. This will be a kind of long intro to this video because I'm going to give a little bit of history and tell a little stuff about me that you probably would never guess. So let's get into it, shall we? I'm going to go over the Figura Obscura Masque of the Red Death figure from the Four Horsemen. Now, this is a figure that I saw and I knew was out there and existed while it was still available for pre-order. It just wasn't really in my wheelhouse, and I thought it was cool, and I really liked it. But I just was not collecting that stuff. My focus was on Joe stuff, and I really did not understand the Figura Obscura subline of what the Four Horsemen is doing at the time. I just saw the figure mentioned, and I looked it up, and I was like, man, that looks fantastic. So I delved a little more into that, and really when the Headless Horseman released, and I saw the Headless Horseman, I watched a Punk with Toys review that Headless Horseman. I was like, oh my God, that is one of the coolest things I've ever seen. I was like, wait a minute, the Figura Obscura, that's isn't that the Red Death figure? So I went back and I got to looking, and it's like, yeah, like that is part of that line. And I was seeing a bunch of pictures that people did over Christmas where they were doing their toy photography, and I saw a Krampus, and I had been trying to find a good Krampus figure or a Krampus figure because I wanted to use it in my photography, and I didn't know where that one come from. And I sent a message to Matthew Matson, Mamu's action figure blog, and I asked him, and he said, yeah, that's the Figura Obscura Krampus from Four Horsemen. I was like, holy crap, they made a Krampus too. So I finally really delved into it and saw all the different stuff that they'd made in this line, and man, I was just blown away. Now, I know who Four Horsemen are. I mean, I've been collecting toys for a long time, off and on. I've got some of the Motu stuff that they did actually in the other room, but Mythic Legions are not my bag. They're awesome. I mean, there's no denying that they're fantastic, well-made figures, and they look amazing. I just don't really do fantasy figures. It's nothing against them. They're great. If I had pocket full of money all the time, I would be all in on Mythic Legions because they look so awesome. They're so photogenic. It's just not something that I collected. So when I took a little closer look at these, and it's like, well, I need to get that Krampus, and I definitely need to get that Masque of the Red Death. Well, I ordered a Krampus. I found him actually on Facebook Marketplace of all places, and I got him in, and I was so excited to get him in that I did not do a video about it because I couldn't wait to see it. So he's in the other room on the other shelf. But I also, right after that, found a fantastic deal on this Masque of the Red Death figure on eBay, and I could not believe I found it on eBay for what I found it for, because when I saw it, it had like 14 watchers, and it was a buy it now. It's like, that can't be right. Is this a knockoff? And I looked, and it was the cheapest sealed one on eBay at the time. And I was like, how does this thing have 14 people watching it? Nobody's bought it. I'm not going to find it cheaper. I've looked. That's one thing about this Four Horsemen stuff. Like, it doesn't go down in value. It might not all go up, but it is never going to go down. And evidently, the Figura Obscura stuff might be, I guess it's a little more even limited release on the stuff. I don't know what their numbers are. All I know is I went back and I watched the prices, and once they're gone, like it's kind of like a HasLab, like they're gone and you're at the mercy of the market. So I went ahead and I bought this Red Death figure. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about that figure and what the Mask of the Red Death means to me. If this is all going to be too much for you, feel free to skip ahead because this is going to be story time for a minute. And if you don't want to listen to me talk about it, I don't blame you a bit. Just go ahead and skip ahead if you want to see the figure until after you see red. That's all I'll say for now. And don't worry, I'm going to do my damn best not to spoil anything. If you know, you know. Okay, so Edgar Allan Poe wrote the short story The Masque of the Red Death. It was published in 1842 in Graham's Magazine. It was not super popular when it come out, as was most of Poe's stuff. Poe did not get popular really and acclaimed, I guess, until he was dead, which is a shame considering the pop culture fixation on Poe right now and all of his works. I started reading Poe probably in seventh grade, somewhere around in there. I was already reading Stephen King, and I discovered Poe and Lovecraft both, and I started reading both of them. I've read everything, though I don't remember it all, word for word. Certain stories stick out for both of them. The problem with reading that stuff is the language, right? It's written in the old timey language, and I think a lot of people will skip over it because you might have to read a line a few times and actually think about what's being said because they use different words and then they use some words differently back then than they do now. So the meaning, you have to actually think about it to grasp what the meaning of it is. And I did that, and that was it was a lot of reading, and it was a lot of pausing and deciphering. And I mean, I even looked up a few words, and that was before, long before we had Google or the internet to do it. But I've just always been drawn to Poe. I like the macabre and I like horror stuff, and that is why this Figura Obscura line has kind of sucked me in because of the stuff that they've been doing in it. The Jacob Marley that just come out. I really want to get that because I'm a big fan of Christmas Carol. So just they're the kind of figures that speak to me, and actually some of the new Mythic Legions do too. But so as far as Mask of the Red Death goes, most of us, when we think Mask of the Red Death, what do we think? Right? We think Phantom of the Opera. The big skull mask with the big hat with the flowers on it and the big, costume with the big sleeves. That's what most of us think of when we think of Mask of the Red Death. And this figure is based more on Poe's version of the short story than it is Phantom of the Opera. Now, you might not think it by looking at me, and you might not think it by listening to me talk, but something that surprises a lot of people when I tell them is I am a huge Phantom of the Opera fan, believe it or not. So, Phantom of the Opera, and I do have a cheat sheet up here. If you see me looking like I'm reading something, I am, because I want to remember get all my facts right. Phantom of the Opera was written by Gaston Leroux, and it was published as a serial in France. Leroux was fascinated by Poe and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle and loved the mystery and the macabre and all of the romanticism and stuff and all of those stories. and he kind of modeled his writings after it. And when he did Phantom of the Opera, when he wrote Phantom of the Opera, the scene with the Mask of the Red Death was really an homage to the short story. Matter of fact, that whole second act of Phantom of the Opera, when you come back after intermission, if you're not back at the time that it's scheduled to start, they will not let you in for the next 15 minutes because it is a pivotal moment in the musical, and they don't want anybody coming in and out and disrupting it because it is just fantastic. So the image that we usually think of for Mask of the Red Death actually comes from that, which was a tribute, homage to the Poe story. And when he wrote the serial, when he wrote the original Phantom of the Opera, he actually based a lot of it on rumors and mystery around the actual Paris Opera House at the time. It was about the time the Opera House opened, and there was already talk of a performance somewhere that somebody had used an actual skeleton in the performance, the skeleton of a ballet dancer. And that didn't happen there, but it happened there in the area and was kind of, a myth. And it kind of followed the theater into the new Paris Opera House, where one of the first performances at the Paris Opera House, the roof caught on fire, which burned up a support anchor and caused the chandelier to crash, which he also wrote into Phantom of the Opera. If you've ever seen it, there's really three images that stick from Phantom of the Opera. It's that chandelier, it is the Phantom dressed as the Mask of the Red Death, and it is the very last scene in the musical, which I'm not going to tell you what that is. I want you to go see it. Or, well, you can't see it now. There's a movie. Check the movie out. It's in there too. But they, when he wrote it all, he based all of that stuff around the mythology of the Opera House, and a lot of it was inspired by Poe. A lot of it was influenced by Poe's tones, really, more than anything. And there was also a rumor of a ghost in the Opera House. So he wrote that into the story as the Phantom being the ghost of the opera, the Phantom of the Opera. That's how that whole thing came to be. And also in the Phantom of the Opera, there's a lake underneath where the Phantom has his lair, and that is a real thing. It's a giant cistern, and I don't know if you can go visit it, but it's actually still there, and according to what I read, firefighters still use it for training for water rescues in the dark and at night. So I thought that was an interesting tidbit. As far as the Phantom of the Opera itself, I got to throw this in here because it's going to relate to something else later. Started in London in 1986, and it came to the U.S. to Broadway in 1998. It's the longest running musical on Broadway. It lasted 35 years. They shut it down last year, and unfortunately, I was never able to make it to New York to see it there. That was one thing I always wanted to do, and I've never been to New York, that's something I wanted to do if I ever went, was go see Phantom on Broadway, but it never happened. It is still in production in London, and it is the second longest running production in London behind Les Miserables. Les Miserables, I can never say that, but you know what I'm talking about. So as far as Phantom, I first saw it here in 1994. It come to our Tennessee Performing Arts Center. Really, the building had been there for quite a while. I think it was built in '80 here in Nashville, and it never really caught on big. It was popular. There were a lot of productions there, but it wasn't until Phantom came in 1994. And I had to go back and look because I couldn't remember if I saw it in 94 or 95. And I did see it in 94, but it was when Phantom came that actually put T-Pack here on the map. And the article actually sourced a couple of articles here from local sources. And ever since Phantom came here for the first time in 1994, that art center has operated in the black, they said. It had not been until Phantom came and they saw that they could actually host big productions like that. So there's a little bit of local history for it. I went to see Phantom for the first time, and I did not realize that it was the first time it had come here. I'm sure I did then, but I guess I'd forgotten that. But that's why it was such a big deal, and I got to go see it. So I'm extra glad that I got to see it during its first run here in Nashville for the first time. Actually, my high school Spanish teacher took a bunch of us to it, or whoever wanted to go. She got the tickets, and whoever wanted to go, and it's like, well, that sounds pretty cool. That was the first musical that I had gone to. It was not the last. I've seen several since then, but I have seen Phantom either 5 or 6 times. I don't remember. It's one of the two. They did do a new production of it that started, I think, about 2015. I saw it in 16 and I saw it in, I think, 19. I've seen the new production twice, and I saw the original production 3 or 4 times. I don't remember. I have all the ticket stubs, but I still have the shirt that I bought and the magnet from the very first time that I saw it in 94. That's the hold that it had on me as just a person liking all types of stuff, all types of music, all types of whatever. But especially, I like big, grand things. I've mentioned I like, tacky shirts and gaudy stuff. And I like big, grand, sweeping things. I like period piece movies, all kind of stuff like that. So it's probably something you'd never look at me and think. But that had such a hold on me when I saw it for that first time, and that second act when you got to see the Phantom dressed as the Mask of the Red Death in the even more elaborate, fancy costume. It's a sight. They actually changed that part in the newer production of it, and it was good, but they were trying to reinvent the wheel. They were just trying to add something new to the production of it. They should have left it alone because it was perfect the first time. They should have never messed with it. Not that what they changed wasn't good, but it was great before. So I love the overture, the theme song to Phantom of the Opera. Back in those days in 1994, I was into all kinds of music, but I listened to a lot of rap back then because we had the best rap in the 80s and the 90s. And that time in 94, I think I either had 2 or 4, but I think it was 2 12-inch subs in the trunk of my car. And I had, it waned. But I used to crack people up because I would pull up and everybody's listening to, whatever, Dr. Dre or whatever. And I'd pop in Phantom of the Opera Overture and that beginning when that all kicks in and it's all bass. After the first few seconds of it, it just used to amaze people. What is that? I'm like, yeah, it's Phantom of the Opera, bitch. Oh, good times. So that is a little bit about my connection to this figure and why I was so, oh, my nose itches, why I was so interested to get it once I learned a little bit about it and saw how good of a figure that it was. So I'm probably going to have to start picking up the Figura Obscura stuff just because of that's all stuff that I really like. That Headless Horseman set, the Jacob Marley, even the Sun Wukong, that will probably be at the bottom of the ones I want to pick up. I've got Krampus, I've got to get Father Christmas, all of that stuff, but they're expensive. They think a lot of them, but they're very good looking and well made figures. And with Four Horsemen, can you even call them toys? I mean, they are, but they're not. They're all like miniature works of art. I mean, they're figurines. We have to get fancy with them, but they really are. I don't know how many of them I'm going to pick up outside of Figura Obscura. There's some coming up in the upcoming wave that are like death themed. I've pre-ordered one of them so far, but so we're going to go ahead and take a look at the Mask of the Red Death. There's the box. As I said, I was really amazed that I was able to find it sealed for the price that I did. And I will, let's see, let's cut the light off here. Now, I'll hold that up for a second if you want to pause that and read it. This is basically a condensed version of the short story. And if you want to take a look at that, now I am going to do a little, turn that light back on. I am going to do a little excerpt from it. Don't worry, I'm not going to read the whole thing. I wouldn't do that to y'all. But I thought it'd be a good way to kick off the unboxing and show this off. And then at the end, I'm going to show something off that is also Mask of the Red Death that I've had for a very long time now and is one of my most prized possessions. And that was another reason that I wanted to get this figure, was because I have this other thing that is very near and dear to me. So hang on just a second. Let me set a mood here, and we're going to open this thing up and take a look at it. So the story of the Mask of the Red Death is, in a nutshell, there was a plague, and it was sweeping the city, and this plague, Poe, it's been said that it was modeled after the bubonic plague, the Black Death. It's been said that it could have been cholera, it could have been tuberculosis, which Poe's wife was suffering from at the time that he wrote this. Those are all the things that it's rumored to have been about. Basically, it's the worst, nastiest virus that you could contract. It's probably closest in our time to Ebola. So the story of the Red Death is there was a prince named Prospero. He was a very ostentatious and vain kind of guy. So the Red Death was sweeping the city, and this is a plague that kills in about 30 minutes, and you die very painfully. Your pores weep blood, your eyes, your nose. It sounds a lot like what our modern day Ebola is. So this guy seals himself up inside his abbey, which is like you think like Game of Thrones, like the gates, and then you have the city part, and then you have the castle. That's kind of, think like that. It's the abbey is all of the surrounding buildings and stuff of the main structure. Usually it's a church, but in this case it's a castle. So this guy takes all of his rich friends that look down on everybody, and they hole up inside his abbey, and they weld the door shut so nobody that is suffering from it can get in. They lock them all outside, and they have enough food, drink, whatever they need to hole up in there forever until basically the plague kills off all of the poor common people and there's nothing left but nobility. So after about 6 months of this guy likes garish stuff. He throws this big party. It's a big masquerade ball. It's just a big giant party in the main part of his abbey. He has rooms that are decorated in different colors, and these are said to symbolize the different stages of life. And there's 7 of them. The very last room, the room itself is all black. All the vestments, the tapestries, wouldn't have had carpet, but everything that you can think of is made to make this room black. In each one of these rooms, there is, at the end of it, it's like opens up into a long hall and opens into one big room, and at the end of that room is a pane of glass, stained glass. Each room is a different color. Behind the stained glass, there are tripods set up with bowls with fire in them to project light into the room, and that's what makes the light the room each color. That's how that works. So he's having this giant party. All these people are in there, wandering room to room, partying, just chilling. The 7th room, the last room, the all black room, all of the other rooms, their decor matches the color of the glass. The last room does not. The last room, the pane of glass is scarlet, is bright red, and that is thought to symbolize death and the end of life. This room is ominous, and not many people at the party go in it. They're all dancing around, having a good time. There's musicians, there's a little orchestra there. They're playing, they're just drinking their wine, having a hell of a party. And in this black room with the scarlet window stands a giant clock. It's made out of black, probably mahogany. I think it says it's mahogany, actually. But either way, this giant black grandfather style clock. And this clock has such a deep ringing tone to it that every hour when this clock chimes, the party stops, because it's just this ominous pall hanging over everything, and everybody is kind of looking at each other, waiting on this clock to stop chiming, because it is just so foreboding and so ominous. It sucks them out of their party atmosphere, and it's just oppressive is what it is. So when this clock finally stops chiming, the party kicks back in, and everything goes on for another hour until it chimes again. Well, this just keeps happening. The musician stops, everything. Well, the final time before this clock chimes, there is a figure that appears at the party. And all of these people are in costume. The prince wants them to dress in the most ridiculous, grotesque, whatever kind of ostentatious costumes that they can come up with, and they do. So all of a sudden, this figure appears, and he is dressed in all red. He has a mask that resembles a corpse, and all of his attire, especially his mask, is covered, speckled with blood, symbolizing the Red Death that is out there, killing off the population outside their walled up, hidden, rich asses. So this figure, as it starts roaming through the party, roaming through the rooms, and the prince doesn't know who it is. He demands the figure reveal itself. Nobody at this party is shown who they are, but the costume is even outside of the prince's crazy standards and requests for the way people dress for this masquerade ball, that he demands to know who it is that would dress to ridicule the situation, which is kind of what they were doing anyway, right? They hold themselves up in here to escape this and forget about the common people. And all of a sudden, here is somebody roaming through his party that's reminding him and everybody there of what's going on outside, and they're trying to forget it. So he demands to know who it is. The figure won't reveal itself. The people at the party are so taken aback by it, they don't know what to do. They just step aside as the figure walks by, and he's just kind of drifting through the party, checking out the rooms. Finally, the prince gets pissed off because the figure is ignoring his demands. He rules over this thing. It's all his shindig. It's all his property. It's his castle, and this figure ignores him. So finally, the figure starts wandering toward the black scarlet room, and the prince takes off after him in a fit of rage. And the prince pulls a dagger as he gets behind the figure, and as the clock starts chiming, the prince goes to stab him, and the figure turns around. The prince stabs him and then immediately cries out, and he falls down dead. Dagger falls, and all of the people are just taken aback, and this is happening while the clock is chiming. And finally, they decide to bum rush the person in the mask costume, and they do. They rip his robes off, they rip his mask off, only to find out that there is nothing there. The figure at the party was the Red Death itself, and everybody at the party stops dropping dead. So before we take a look at this figure, the last stance of the short story is, and now was acknowledged the presence of the Red Death. He had come like a thief in the night, and one by one dropped the revelers in the blood-bedewed halls of their revel, and died each in the despairing posture of his fall. And the life of the ebony clock went out with that of the last of the gay, and the flames of the tripods expired, and darkness and decay and the Red Death held illimitable dominion over all. So that is the story of the Red Death. Now let's look at him. I certainly appreciate it if you guys hung in there for all of that. Every now and then there's something I may review that really resonates with me or have a really deep connection to. Kind of like when I did Mutton Junkyard video, and this is one. So got this here, a little pamphlet for Four Horsemen stuff, and this little book here, presented by Edgar Allan Poe and Four Horsemen Studios. So this has got the entire uh, short story in it. That's pretty cool. Got some illustrations there. I have not taken this little booklet out. So there is what we just read, and there is that. So I have not at all looked through this little booklet. This has got a little blurb about Poe. Poe's a very tragic figure. Guy was tragically way ahead of his time. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut the cellophane off and go ahead and take a look at the inside. So you guys know me, I'm usually going to take a little bit of, well, I wouldn't say offense. I usually complain a little bit about these fancy boxes and the way some of this stuff is packaged. But something like this, I mean, you can't complain too much about this with what it is. So get a little better look at that. So let's take a look at this guy. So there's what he looks like inside his box. So this comes out, and these have the magnets on here. Very good use of the magnetic clasps. Some awesome artwork there with some of the people at the party. I'm guessing this is supposed to be Prince Prospero there in the middle, since he's the one that's freaking out the most. But you can kind of see some of the costumes that these people at the party would have been in. Here you've got your different color of the windows in each room. That is very cool. So let's put this over here like so. Get a good look at this dude. He does come with the clock. A lot of neat detail in there. So let's get him out. See what this dude is about. Actually, before we do that, let's look at the back of the box. I didn't realize that the back of the box had different artwork on it. So this is really awesome. Here's the Abbey and the castle in the background, and here's the long row, and it has each color of the windowed rooms. And then down here at the bottom, you have a plague doctor driving the cart with the horse, and this is full of corpses and a little skull there that is kind of like one of those oh, those pictures you look at and you look at it two or three ways and see something different. The skull there. These are all like limbs. There's an arm. These are hands. So he's basically driving the cart, picking up the bodies of the Red Death victims. And the top of it does have these peel off things. It's not supposed to rip the box. You peel them off real slow and you can get them off. But I didn't even realize that it had different artwork all on the sides of it. So now that we've shown that off, we'll get him out. So show off some stuff here while it's in the package, just because it's easier to show. He's got the clock. He's got several sets of hands, red and black, in various positions. Has this giant smear of blood that I'm guessing you stand him on. This is looks like the base for the clock. You got a couple more hands here. There is the dagger that Prince Prospero failed to kill him with, and then up here is a crow, I guess. Ah, nevermore. That looks like that's going to go on top of the clock. I thought it'd just probably be easier to show all this stuff in here while it still looks cool. So I keep saying I'm going to get him out of the box. I'm really going to get him out this time. There, got him out there and just kind of stood him up. So he's held in with the little ties there. Everything else just kind of pops out, but he is held in there pretty good with those ties. So first off, I want to take a look at the clock. So while I was taking it off, or taking it out, I realized that this pops off, and you can actually see the clock has got some mind-blowing detail in it. You can see there, it's got the worlds on it, and it's got the mask there at the top. Just look at the detail and the chimes. I'm honestly surprised none of this actually swings. So this is the kind of stuff that you don't get with Joe's, ladies and gentlemen. Clock stands there. This has got some really beautiful sculpt work on it. And this clear plastic there for the front of it. And it just pops on. second to line it up. So it just snaps back into place. And this will go on like so. Need some white. Well, that looks like that's lined up. Okay. Better when it's sitting down. So let's put a little dude here on top. Little ominous crow piece. I'm going to call that a crow just because, nevermore. So it could be it's supposed to be a raven. Why do I keep saying crow? Raven. I can't believe I just kept saying crow. Raven, you know what I meant. So maybe it's supposed to be a crow, but I'm pretty sure that's supposed to be a raven. Ravens symbolize death. So this has feet on here, pegs on the feet. That's close enough. Oh, okay, there it goes. All right, so it's got the giant pool of blood there, running out of clock. So obviously you're supposed to stand him on there. He's got these flowing robes. I've seen people that aren't happy with the soft goods on him. There's way too much of it. There's a lot. He's got these different scarlet covered robes. He has the red hands that match the robes, and kind of like he's supposed to symbolize or supposed to appear as a corpse, like just a rotting dead thing. He's got this alternate hand that is the black, that is symbolizing, the rotting. He's got the claws there. Let's see, this hand, yeah, this hand has them as well. It comes with alternate sets of hands in each color. They look good. They look like they are supposed to. We will take a look at this dagger. Of course, has awesome sculpt work and awesome paint apps on it. It is a huge dagger compared to the size of the figures. These are they're 112 figures. So let's move all of that stuff and get to the man himself. He's got these crazy feet. So that was at the party. What threw everybody off was he looks like he is a walking corpse. That's what he's supposed to symbolize. Like he's a corpse that the Red Death has gotten. So this arm over here is a little bit restricted. So there's the back. There's what his head looks like. So this arm is somewhat tight and restricted, and it seems to be so by the robe. Move the robe. It's not as bad. So he's got articulation. All right. Yeah, he's got articulation there. I was told that these figures do have quite a bit of tight articulation, and the Krampus that I bought it does as well. So it does have ball jointed ankles and knees. So you can pose this guy in a variety of ways, but honestly, this this is the look that I'm going for with my figure. The robe's flowing, his hands are outstretched because he's coming to get you. I like the soft goods. It is a lot. This is a lot of soft goods on here. I can see where people might have a complaint with it. Underneath, he's just got it's black, but that's what the figure is. If you look there, like the skin is falling off of him, like he's literally rotting away. I wonder if any other parts of him, of his torso or anything. So this is plastic. In case you're wondering, I guess his junk has already fallen off. I just had to know. I'm sorry. So this is molded. It goes up into there. So he has actually a scarlet sash rope piece underneath that is not soft goods. It's plastic. It's flexible. So that's just to kind of cover him up. This has the texture of like if you get a handkerchief wet and stretch it out and it dries and it's kind of rigid. I just love that how that transitions from like a red touch of death hand into the black. Another little spot of decay there. I really would have liked to see a little more of that on the arms and stuff since that's what's visible. But this is how I'm going to set this guy up. I'm going to set him up with the clock. I'm going to stand him real good, and I'm going to outstretch his hands like he is coming after you. I'm going to fit that hood on there a little bit better. I think this is a fantastic figure, and it hits all the fills for me for what I would want this figure to be. So here's the big thing, right? The mask comes off of him. And that was a big point of contention when this figure come out. Like they wanted to go out of their way to hide what is under here. They didn't want anybody to know. They wanted to keep it a big mystery, big secret until people had the figure in their hand to see what it was all about for themselves. Um, I can't tell what's under there. So I'm going to look, but I'm not going to show you guys. I know when somebody got this a couple months ago, when everybody got it in hand, somebody did an unboxing and they took the mask off and they showed it. I have gone out of my way not to see that video. I don't know who it was. I don't care who it was, but everybody got pissed off because they showed it, and I've gone out of my way not to hunt it down because I did not want to know until I got this figure in hand and could look for myself. So I'm gonna look, but I'm not gonna let you guys look. Well, that's creepy. It doesn't disappoint. I'm not going to show you the figure, but I'm going to show you the mask up close. I didn't want to bring it up real close before because I didn't want to risk accidentally knocking it off. I didn't know exactly how well it was on there. I swear out of the corner of my eye that something moved. But I've got a little heater on over here beside me, and I'm hoping maybe the heater caught part of the robe. I'm not even kidding you. I swear I just saw something move on that figure. Um, this looks amazing. I mean, you'd expect nothing less from the Four Horsemen. I'm not going to turn it around too much because I don't want to show anything that might even hint at what's underneath. But yeah, it doesn't disappoint. They did a good job of trying to translate what is in the story. So I'm going to put this back on and I'm going to go grab the thing that I told you guys about in the beginning. So I'll be right back. So, in case you were wondering, the mask has pegs on it that peg into the side of the head, and you just line it up and you push it in and snap it in. So that's actually how the mask fits on. I wanted to make sure I had it back on there good, so it doesn't accidentally come off. It actually the pegs are pretty big on it. It goes in and it's gonna stay. So the thing I wanted to go get that I talked about that I would bring back up later was this right here. one of my prized possessions that I have as far as any kind of collectible or anything like that. This is the statue. This is porcelain, I think, ceramic. This is from Phantom of the Opera. This is the way that they did the Phantom for the musical. This is when you first see him in the second act, and this is what we mostly think of when we think of the Red Death is the Phantom dressed as Red Death, but he is in this fancy costume. Got the big poofy arms. This is a music box from the San Francisco Music Box Company. If you don't remember that, I think they're still around, but they were huge back in the '90s. They did all kind of different things, um, all kinds of different properties, but these were huge. They were not cheap then, and most of these have gone up in value. But this one I just like so much. So this one is there. It still works. I hadn't played it. Hadn't played it for a while. So this one is dated 2000, and that is probably when I got it. I'd probably seen Phantom 2000. I'd probably seen it one more time, but this was a Christmas gift that my brother got me. My mom picked it out. My mom and my aunt had so many things from the San Francisco Music Box Company. My aunt, like, they did a lot of carousels and carousel horses and things like that. But this was a Christmas gift from me from my brother, per my mom, because of how much I liked Phantom. And this thing has been on display somewhere in my house ever since I got it. House, apartment, whatever, wherever I've lived, this thing has always had a prominent display. I've still got the box. I've got the styrofoam that's packed in. But I always really loved this thing because it was Phantom and because it was Poe. And now I love it even more because my mom and my brother are both no longer with us. So it definitely has a prominent display now. This dude, this is what he was originally illustrated as in the story, as what this figure is, you know, uh, showing or is showing off. That's telling retelling the story, and this was kind of the more embellished, fancy version of him for Phantom of the Opera. But of course, they were at a masquerade ball, and he basically makes the same kind of entrance in Phantom as the actual Red Death does in the original story. Phantom comes in and he basically invades this masquerade ball that they're having. And while he does not kill everybody, he certainly makes a giant stir. So it takes from this. So I'm glad to have these two pieces in my collection. This one for Love of Phantom, and obviously my story of why I have it. And this one just because I like Poe and I like Macabre, and it all ties into that. So I don't know if I'm going to display them together because I've got a bunch of other stuff around him. I don't know exactly where I'm going to put this guy. He may be the only non-Joe or non-Joe esque toy to reside here in my pit room with me. But that is the Figura Obscura Masque of the Red Death figure. Awesome packaging, awesome presentation. Again, he doesn't come with a lot of stuff, but there's not really anything else he could have come with unless they wanted to do some kind of bigger diorama that had the actual the window, red window in it. There's not a whole lot else they really could have done with it to come across. And if they'd done that, it would have been, close to double what it was. It probably would have been approaching the Headless Horseman price. So I'm fine with getting the clock and the blood and the dagger because those are the more important pieces of the story. I can make the Abbey. I'm actually gonna. So we'll see how that goes. There is, guys. I really like the figure. Um, I'm gonna give it a 4.5 yeehaws. These guys are on a whole nother level than Joe's. I can't give it a 5. I'd love to give it a 5 because of my nostalgia for it. I just would have liked to seen some more of the rotting and stuff on the parts that we can see. Not so much on the abdomen and whatever, but just on the areas that we can see. I would have liked to seen some more decay. They could have done that really easy because that's what they do. But otherwise, I'm happy with it, and I got it for a very good price considering what this dude's going for now on the secondary. So that was my unboxing and review and story time and personal stuff that all ties into Poe and Red Death and Phantom of the Opera and everything else. I hope you guys have liked sitting here listening to me talk about it. If you hadn't, I can't really blame you. But there he is. Hope to soon acquire a headless horseman for myself, but and a Jacob Marley. But those may be on the back burner for a little while. But whenever I get them, I will do an unboxing and a review on them. So until then, you guys, I will see you next time. I appreciate you stopping by. If you like all this rambling mess, appreciate you giving me that thumbs up, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. There won't be a whole lot of content like this, and most of it will not be this long. But there will be some because there's other stuff I like. Joe's going to take the priority. But when something like this with the nostalgia feels and the history I have with it comes up, we're going to look at it. So, thanks, guys, for stopping by, and I will see you next time on 3 Star Draw. I swear I saw something move on this thing. I'm not making it up.